Hi, welcome to episode number 3 of the Better Conversations podcast. We speak to leaders of today so that the leaders of tomorrow can be inspired, enriched, and better than those who came before them. Today I'm with Regina Allanah, who has been awarded a British Empire Medal for voluntary services in the London Borough of Harringay, specifically during the London riots. She is a non-practicing barrister too. How are you today, Regina?
I'm very well, thank you. Hi.
And I know you recently went on holiday. How was that?
It was really good. I had a few days in Greece. It was very relaxing, very much needed.
Nice. So to get right into it, I know that you often advise people who are younger to not get too comfortable in a permanent role. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about that and how you learned about that?
Yes, most definitely. In the early stages of my career, which was around 12 years ago, once I got called to the Bar of England and Wales, I realised that it was important to be very agile at the very early stages of your career. And what I mean by that is gaining as much experience as possible from your full-time work and also in a voluntary capacity alongside it. So, for example, in my position at the time, I started off in the National Crime Agency, which is our equivalent of the FBI in England. And in the evenings or after work, I would often volunteer for victim support in Harringay. And that could be either providing emotional support over the phone to victims of crime or going to their homes to see how they are and making sure the neighbourhood policing had offered them the practical support they needed, such as changing the locks to their homes if they had been burgled or other safety measures. And in doing that voluntary work, I was able to apply more soft skills, such as being able to talk to a range of people and also being more empathetic in my daily life, as opposed to the work that I did during the day that provided me with the skill set of being very stern and very objective in my work because, of course, I was an intelligence officer. And in the nature of that type of work, you don't have that close relation to the victims. It's purely an investigation role and very analytical. I did that work for 5 years with the FBI equivalent, National Crime Agency, and victim support. But I also realised it's now time to move on. So what do you then do next? I then realised it was very important for me to gain further experience, but in this time within the area of financial crime. So, of course, in able to do that, I had to basically apply for a new role, and that meant doing various job applications, learning how to do job applications, and that being making sure the role I'm applying for, I met all the requirements in the job specification alongside my CV. If my CV did not match, it's very unlikely that I would have been sifted for the role. And overall, that experience taught me never get too comfortable in a role. It is good to move on. It is very good to get those new skills, because if you don't get those new skills, how are you going to demonstrate that you have a variation of skills and that actually you've upskilled yourselves? So that was very important to me. And in summary, never get comfortable. And the I will say the goal overall was better enumeration, and also it enabled me to be more confident within myself as I went along my career journey.
Yeah, so I know you spoke about sort of not getting too comfortable. To really pull some more goodness out of that experience, sort of how do you know when you're sort of getting too comfortable in a role? Like what would you tell people, when they are asking, how do I know if I'm too comfortable? What sort of would you tell them?
So first and foremost, it will be you will realize that you're not actually learning anything anymore. The role becomes very robotic, and regardless of what your responsibilities are, if you're not being stimulated in the sense of new tasks or thinking outside the box, or the work is not allowing you to have that capacity to be innovative, so using various technologies in your work or using new practical processes, how are you expanding your skill set? How are you broadening your knowledge? Is your role allowing you to go to seminars, webinars? Are you going on training? And I'm not talking of training like, updating yourself on data protection. I'm talking about how are you using maybe Excel more efficiently to help your job? Are you being allowed to shadow your colleagues that are more senior than you? Are you being allowed to take on more responsibility? That is what I mean. If you are doing something day in, day out for, I would say, especially within a 3-month period, you're not really expanding on your skill set. In fact, you're actually becoming stagnant. And regardless of your role, there is no excuse to be within that position. You should feel empowered to broaden your knowledge and skill set. So that is what I mean by knowing that the role that you are doing is not fulfilling you, and you need to broaden that, or if anything, leave that role in its entirety if it's not giving you all the needs you require in terms of skill set, happiness, and also a career move, being upskilled.
Yeah, and I think this leads us nicely into the second point that you often make as well, about not limiting the industries that you work in. I know that comfortability can definitely lead you to stay in one industry for a very long time. I mean, what's your experience with changing industries, and what's your story behind that as well?
So for a while, I'd worked within the public sector, so the National Crime Agency and various regulators. But during that experience, it was really, really good. Don't get me wrong, it was very rewarding. I did a lot of very serious work. Of course, I'm investigating organised crime. But what I found specifically within the public sector, more so because they were limited in their expenses, technology was beginning to grow a lot. I'll say in the past 7 years. And I noticed if they don't have the budget for that in upskilling you in training or using the systems to broaden that knowledge and make your work easier, I was limiting my knowledge in applying myself to that technology. So, for example, I realized what I could do in the public sector, I can do in the private sector, and also, of course, be more remunerated for that without any limitations. So it got to the point around 7 years ago that I will make the decisive decision to enter the private sector. So I did that, and I started working within the areas of what we call consultancy. So the likes of Deloitte, which are one of the big 4 accountancy firms in the world. I did that work in the evening alongside my day job in the day to see whether is this work really for me? Am I able to deal with the work pressures that the private sector predominantly has, because it's very much more target driven, key performance indicators, and of course money driven. And also, will I really be able to understand the technology and systems that was applied in that role? And I felt, after doing that work for around 4 months in the evening, I was very much conducive to that. My skill set within Excel broadened very quickly. So, for example, I would have to do a lot of data analytics. I would use systems such as Microsoft OneNote. I would use visuals programs such as what we call I2 analytics to be able to connect various entities and connect them where there is a link to a case. And also the various banking systems as well. I was able to multitask very quickly, very efficiently, learn a lot about electronic systems in the banking world. So, for example, incorporating what we call banking statements in an electronic format, and then exporting that data into what we call pivot graphs. So, in order for me to make more sense of the data, so to give you a practical example, I could have one customer and I want to know all the incomings and outgoings over a certain period of time. A graph will provide me that detail because of the information that has been exported from that banking statement into then a spreadsheet, into then a graph. Now, that type of analysis, I don't think I would be able to have that brevity within the public sector. It will be quite limited. If anything, they will provide that skill set to those which we will call more specialists. But in the private sector, you are a specialist from very early on. It is very rare for them to outsource that type of skill set. They will actually teach you embedded within that organisation. So that is what I mean by upskilling yourself very early on and having the exposure into using such systems for your advantage.
Yeah, I think you make some really good points there, and it definitely leads into sort of that final thing that you often say to people, especially younger people who are just entering the workforce, which is developing your skills and making sure you're ahead in that. I mean, obviously you spoke about a lot of the skills that you developed throughout that journey as well. But I guess what gave you the courage as well to go out there and actually start developing your skills? And what resources did you use as well to actually start developing?
Most definitely. So I did my research. I would often go onto various organisations that I had an eye on and look at the profile of those individuals that I wanted to be, that I basically had aspired to. So usually graduates will enter what we call an associate position. And I looked at their profile and I was like, this person has worked here, this person has worked there. How did they do that? And what I'd noticed, they weren't in a role prior to that for more than, let's say, 2 to 3 years. They'd either gained experience via a voluntary capacity and in a permanent position, but they were often moving around. And it wasn't a bad thing, especially for young graduates. It was actually a good thing because it showed that they were exposing themselves to various skills and various experiences. And also, in order to get the attention of, in my experience, for what we call big firms, very prestigious firms, I had to liken my CV to that. If I stayed stagnant within the public sector, that wasn't going to serve me any justice in demonstrating, I am actually a good candidate in the private sector. I've showed business acumen skills. If you want to stay in the public sector, then it's most likely you will move around within the public sector, but also within that similar type of industry of work. So, as I said, in order for me to demonstrate to the private sector, I can do this type of work, I have been exposed to that type of work. I did that work with Deloitte in the night, and that was an added skill set to my CV. And then I constantly applied for various consultancy work. I did it in a contracting capacity, and then I finally got it in a permanent capacity because I'd honed in on my CV. My CV matched their job specification to the T. Literally, there was no gaps in my CV for them to say I don't have the business acumen, because I've shown in the contracted jobs and the consultancy work I'd done what we call going out to market. So when they say going out to market, when you're in a role, you are marketing the firm to potential clients so that you can hopefully be rewarded that work, and that is taking into account presentations, speaking to the client, and also maybe even drafting articles. So that is what we call business commercial mindset. And in doing all of that, over the contracted period of time, I'll say over a 3-year period, I'd built up my CV, and then of course I had enough evidence to show the permanent role, being now where I am now, Ernst & Young. Oh, I have done consultancy before. I've worked with your competitors, Deloitte. I have gone to market. I have demonstrated that I have applied data analytics skills from working at the National Crime Agency, Serious Fraud Office, Deloitte, using Excel in various formats, and also investigating. As an intelligence officer, I did 5 years of investigating. Of course, I know how to investigate. And so all of that worked in my favour. But of course, because I was moving more into the financial crime area, the work I did at Deloitte, working on behalf of a bank and working at the Serious Fraud Office, I had specialised more in what we call fraud, bribery and corruption. So it was a given that, I'd provided enough of that skill set and exposure for Ernst & Young to take me on now in what I am now doing as a senior consultant in financial crime and forensics. I
think you make some really good points there about really looking at the job profile that you want and then matching that up with the skills that you need, and really sort of having the courage to go out there and get those skills. I guess to wrap up, as we always do, we always ask the speaker, what would they advise their younger self? So have you got something you would advise your younger self?
Definitely. Resilience, and specifically resilience to rejection. At the very early stages of your career, you are not going to necessarily get all the roles you want, and that could be for a variety of reasons. One, you are still most likely going to be very limited in your experience, but it will only encourage you to get that experience as much as possible, whether it be on the weekend, whether it be after work, whether it be in your current work, but make sure you have a variety, and try and be encouraged and confident to shadow your senior peers, even if it's for a day. That's experience in itself. Can I shadow your meeting? Can I take minutes at your meeting? That is experience within your current role. And a lot of people don't think about it like that. And when they do that, they're actually being very helpful to their seniors, and they are also doing themselves a great advantage. And before you know it, you have been exposed in the most senior meetings. You have now been exposed to a variety of conversations that you would not have ordinarily been invited to had you not taken that intuition to take that forward leap. So as I said, take that rejection into a positive. It's never good to be too comfortable ever. It will only push you, and before you know it, you won't be getting that much rejections, I promise you.
That's really motivational. I think it definitely speaks to your story as well, about going through and having the courage to go to different industries as well. Having that, I guess, that willpower to not, be afraid of rejection is really important, especially at the young part of your career. So thank you very much, Regina, for everything you said today. I think it's going to be really helpful. I know where people can find you. Is there anywhere they can find you?
LinkedIn, Regina Allanah. If you just send me an invitation, I will gladly accept, and we can start our conversation there, and I'll see where I can help you.
Yeah, and I know you also help women women after greatness. Would you like to speak a little bit about that as well?
So last year in 2021, I helped a few young ladies, around 3, who were law graduates and wanted mental support, and that was in the capacity of reviewing their CVs, their application forms, and also providing them mock interviews for legal internships, legal roles, work experience, and every single one of those young ladies were very successful in the roles they wanted to apply for, because with the support I provided to them, they were very much ready, and they worked with very established firms, Magic Circle law firms, which are the top tier of law firms across the world. And they're successful.
Great. So anyone who wants that service as well, are they free to sort of come and sort of message you on LinkedIn, and then you'll be able to sort of help them with their CVs and stuff?
Very much so. I believe in giving back, and wherever I can support the next generation, I'm very happy to do so. The pleasure is mine.
Thank you, Regina, and you've just listened to another Better Conversation. I hope that was insightful, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you.